3 months after the Great Battle, Hana stood in the war room of the human command ship watching a galaxy in chaos. The tactical display showed dozens of star systems in rebellion against the HFY Empire. Red warning lights marked worlds where fighting was taking place. Blue indicators showed systems that had declared independence. Green dots represented human task forces providing support to the rebels. 17 systems have broken free in the past week alone, reported Captain Taemin, the human intelligence officer. The HFY are losing control faster than they can respond. Admiral Yi-jun studied the display with a grim expression. And their response? Getting more desperate, Taemin replied. 3 days ago they used a planet-killer weapon on the Harmony Collective's homeworld. 2 billion civilians dead just to send a message. The room fell silent. Hana felt sick to her stomach. She had met representatives from the Harmony Collective, peaceful people who had never hurt anyone. Their only crime was asking for freedom. What was the message? She asked quietly. That anyone who rebels will share the same fate, Daeho answered. His usual calm demeanor was gone, replaced by barely controlled anger. They're trying to terrorize the galaxy back into submission. General Sang-ho's voice crackled over the communication system from his flagship. Admiral Yi-jun, report to my ship immediately. Bring Commander Hana and the senior staff. An hour later, they stood in the general's private briefing room. The walls were covered with star charts and intelligence reports. At the center of it all was a detailed model of the HFY home system. The Empire is finished, General Sang-ho announced without preamble. They've lost too many worlds, too many ships, too much control. But a dying animal is still dangerous. He pointed to intelligence photos showing massive construction projects around the HFY homeworld. They're building something new. Our spies report it's a weapon capable of destroying entire star systems, not just planets but suns themselves. Hana stared at the images in horror. They would kill trillions of people? If it means maintaining their empire, yes, the general replied. They've already proven they're willing to commit genocide. This is just genocide on a larger scale. How long until this weapon is operational? Admiral Yi-jun asked. 6 weeks, maybe 8 if we're lucky, the general said, which means we have one chance to end this war before they can use it. He activated a holographic display showing the HFY home system in detail. The central world was surrounded by massive defense stations and protected by the largest fleet in the galaxy. This is Operation Final Strike, General Sang-ho explained. We're going to take every ship we have, every ally we can gather, and hit them where they live. Not to conquer, to end them once and for all. How many ships are we talking about? Captain Yoonji asked. 3,000 human vessels plus allied forces from 47 different species. The largest fleet in galactic history. Hana looked at the display showing the HFY defenses. Even with 3,000 ships, the odds seemed impossible. Can we win? Winning isn't the question, Daeho said grimly. Stopping them is. Even if we lose every ship, even if none of us survive, we have to make sure they can't complete that weapon. Over the following weeks, Hana watched the largest military mobilization in human history. Ships arrived from every human colony, from Earth itself, from secret bases she hadn't known existed. The humans had been preparing for this kind of war for decades, building fleets and training soldiers for a conflict most people thought would never come. But it wasn't just humans preparing for battle. The Allied fleet included species she had never heard of, civilizations that had been hiding from the HFY for centuries, rebels who had been waiting for their chance to strike back. Look at this, Sergeant Kyung-soo said, pointing to a group of crystalline beings working alongside human engineers. The Mineral Collective. They've been extinct for 200 years, according to galactic records. They've been hiding, explained Lieutenant Bo-young, a human weapons specialist who had become friends with the Viridian survivors. Lots of species went into hiding rather than face the HFY. Now they're all coming out to fight. Hana spent her time training with the human special forces, learning new tactics and strategies. The humans didn't just plan to fight the HFY, they planned to fight them in ways the aliens couldn't predict or counter. Your people fight like machines, she observed during a training exercise. Very precise, very coordinated. That's how you survive on a death world, Bo-young explained. Everything has to work perfectly or everyone dies. No room for mistakes, no time for hesitation. As the fleet prepared to depart for the final battle, disturbing news arrived from the front lines. The HFY had activated their system killer weapon early. using it to destroy the Christarch Kingdom's home system. An entire civilization wiped out in moments. The news spread through the fleet like wildfire. Hana watched human soldiers sharpen their weapons and check their equipment with cold determination. This wasn't about liberation anymore. It was about preventing the complete destruction of galactic civilization. They crossed the line, General Sang-ho announced in his final briefing before departure. No more mercy. No more restraint. We're going to end the Cathvar Empire permanently. The journey to the Cathvar home system took 2 weeks through hyperspace. During that time, Hana got to know her human allies better. She learned about Earth's history, the wars, the disasters, the struggles that had forged humanity into such effective warriors. We almost destroyed ourselves a dozen times, Captain Taman told her. Nuclear wars, climate disasters, AI rebellions, alien invasions. We've survived everything the universe could throw at us. Alien invasions? Hana asked in surprise. I thought humans had never encountered aliens before the galactic community found you. Taman smiled grimly. That's what we wanted everyone to think. The truth is, we've been dealing with hostile aliens for over a century. The Cathvar aren't the first species to think humans would be easy prey. When they finally arrived at the edge of the Cathvar home system, the sight was overwhelming. The combined Allied fleet stretched across millions of kilometers of space, ships of every size and design, from human battlecruisers to alien fighters that looked like living creatures. Facing them was the entire remaining strength of the Cathvar Empire. Thousands of ships formed defensive lines around their homeworld, while massive space stations bristled with weapons designed to destroy entire fleets. Final communications check, Admiral Yijun announced. All ships report readiness status. The responses came in from across the fleet, human vessels, alien allies, rebel groups, and species thought extinct, all of them united by a single purpose: ending the Cathvar threat forever. This is it, Daeho said quietly, checking his personal weapons one last time. Whatever happens today, the galaxy will never be the same. General Sang-ho's voice came over the fleet-wide communication system. All ships, this is your final briefing. Our mission is simple: destroy the Cathvar's ability to threaten any world ever again. Some of you won't survive this battle. None of us may survive. But our sacrifice will ensure that future generations can live free from fear. Hana gripped her human-made weapon tightly and thought about her broken spear, about her fallen soldiers, about all the worlds that had suffered under Cathvar rule. Today that suffering would end. All ships, General Sang-ho commanded. Attack formation. Let's finish this. The greatest battle in galactic history was about to begin. The research ship Endurance wasn't much to look at. Built by humans for long-range exploration, it was small and plain compared to the sleek vessels of other species. But it was tough, reliable, and, most importantly, it was all Daeho could get for his mission. He stood in the ship's cramped cargo bay, watching the last supplies being loaded. The crew was small, partly by choice and partly because no one else wanted to join what most people saw as a suicide mission. Bo-Ram Lee, their pilot, was checking the navigation systems for the third time that morning. She was young for such an important job, but she had volunteered when others wouldn't. Her steady hands and calm personality made her perfect for flying into the unknown. Courses plotted, she called out. 3 jumps to reach the outer edge of Shadowmere space. Tae-Kyung-oh looked up from his communication equipment. As their signals specialist, he would be responsible for trying to make first contact with the Vorthak, if they were lucky enough to find any alive. Long-range scanners are working perfectly, he reported. If there's anything bigger than a space rock out there, we'll know about it. The rest of the crew was a mixed group. 2 Bendari scientists who specialized in xenobiology, a Keth engineer who maintained their weapon systems, and 3 human security officers who looked like they already regretted their decision to volunteer. Hye-Jin Park finished her final check of the ship's systems. As chief engineer, she had spent weeks preparing the Endurance for whatever they might face in Vorthak space. All systems green, she announced. We're as ready as we'll ever be. Daeho nodded and activated the ship's communication system. Nexus control. This is research vessel Endurance. Requesting permission to depart. Permission granted, Endurance, came the reply. Good luck out there. Try not to get eaten. The comment was meant as a joke, but no one on the bridge laughed. As the ship pulled away from the station, Daeho watched Nexus Prime shrink behind them. He wondered if he would ever see it again. More importantly, he wondered if any of his crew would. The first 2 jumps through hyperspace went smoothly. They passed through several systems that were well mapped and regularly patrolled. Other ships appeared on their scanners, merchant vessels and military patrols going about their normal business. It felt almost like a regular exploration mission. Everything changed when they jumped into the outer reaches of the Shadowmere system. "My God," whispered Boram from the pilot's seat. Through the main view screen, they could see a system unlike anything in known space. The star at its center burned with a dark red light, casting long shadows across planets that seemed to absorb light rather than reflect it. 3 worlds orbited the dying sun, each one covered in thick clouds that blocked any view of the surface. "Scanners are picking up massive energy readings," Taekyung reported, his voice tight with nervousness. "There's definitely life down there." "A lot of it. What kind of life?" asked Dr. Keln, one of the Bendari scientists. "Big, really big. Some of the biosignatures are showing creatures over 50 meters long." The Keth engineer, Throck, checked his weapon systems nervously. 50 meters? What do they eat to get that big? "Each other, probably," muttered one of the security officers. "Cut the chatter," Daeho said firmly. "We knew this wasn't going to be easy. Taekyung, can you detect any artificial structures, cities, technology, anything that might indicate intelligence?" "Scanning now." Taekyung worked at his console for several minutes. "There's something strange here. I'm not picking up any cities or obvious technology, but the energy patterns are too organized to be natural. It's like the whole ecosystem is structured somehow." "Structured how?" "I'm not sure. It's like looking at a forest, but one where every tree is exactly where it's supposed to be. Natural, but with an underlying pattern." Dr. Vell, the second Bendari scientist, leaned forward with interest. "Fascinating. It suggests intelligence, but not the kind we usually recognize. Perhaps the Vorthak don't build cities because they don't need them. Or because they are the city," Daeho said thoughtfully. "Some Earth animals create complex social structures without building permanent structures. Wolf packs, lion prides, even some groups of sharks." "You're comparing them to Earth animals again," Dr. Keln said dismissively. "These are apex predators from an alien world. They might not follow any rules we understand." Before Daeho could reply, alarms started blaring throughout the ship. "Contact," Taekyung shouted. "Something big just appeared on our sensors. It came from the second planet." "On screen," Boram ordered. The image that appeared made everyone go silent. It was a ship, but unlike anything they had ever seen. Black as space itself, it seemed to flow rather than fly. There were no obvious engines, no weapons ports, no communication arrays. It was organic looking, like a massive creature swimming through the void. "Is it headed for us?" asked Heejin. "No," Taekyung replied, sounding confused. "It's just watching, staying at exactly 2,000 kilometers distance, like it's studying us." "Try to communicate," Daeho ordered. Taekyung sent out standard greeting signals on all frequencies. There was no response. "Maybe they don't use radio," suggested Dr. Vell. "Or maybe they're deciding whether we're worth eating," added Throck grimly. For 10 minutes, the 2 ships stayed in their strange standoff. The alien vessel never moved closer, never moved away. It simply watched. Then, without warning, it vanished. "Where did it go?" Boram asked, checking her instruments frantically. "I don't know," Taekyung replied. "It just disappeared. No energy signature, no movement. It's like it was never there." "But it was there," Daeho said quietly. "They know we're here now." Dr. Keln's skin had turned a pale shade of green, which meant he was frightened. "Perhaps we should reconsider this mission," he suggested. "We've confirmed that the Vorthak exist and that they have space technology." "Isn't that enough?" "No," Daeho said firmly. "We came here to make contact, not just to take pictures from a distance." "But they could have destroyed us easily," protested one of the security officers. "That ship was 10 times our size." "Exactly," Daeho said with growing excitement. "They could have destroyed us, but they didn't. They studied us instead." "That's not the behavior of mindless killers. That's the behavior of intelligent beings who are curious about strangers. Or predators deciding how best to hunt us," Dr. Keln muttered. "Maybe both," Daeho admitted. "But either way, it proves they're more than just monsters." He turned to Boram. "Take us to the second planet. Standard orbit, but stay ready to run if things go bad." "Are you sure about this?" she asked. "No, but I'm sure we have to try." As the Endurance moved deeper into the Shadowmere system, more ships appeared on their sensors, dozens of them all staying at a careful distance. The crew watched nervously as they found themselves surrounded by vessels they couldn't understand, crewed by beings they had never seen. "They're hurting us," observed Hyejin. She was right. The alien ships were positioning themselves to guide the Endurance toward a specific area above the second planet, not forcing them, just encouraging them to go in a particular direction. "Like wolves driving deer," Deho said with something like admiration. "They're not attacking because they don't see us as a threat. But they want us to go where they want us to go. And where's that?" asked Boram. Deho looked at the dark planet growing larger on their screen. "Down there. They want us to come down to their world." The crew exchanged nervous glances. Going into orbit was one thing. Actually landing on a planet full of apex predators was something else entirely. But as they watched, one of the alien ships moved ahead of them, clearly leading the way. It was an invitation, not a threat. At least Deho hoped it was. The landing site the Vorthak chose for them was a clearing in what looked like an endless forest. From orbit, the trees appeared black against the red light of the dying sun. Up close, they were even more intimidating. Each tree was massive, easily 100 meters tall, with thick branches that twisted together to form a canopy so dense that very little light reached the ground. The air was warm and humid, filled with strange sounds that echoed through the darkness. "Atmosphere is breathable," reported Dr. Vell, checking his instruments. "Oxygen levels are actually higher than Earth normal. Temperature is steady at 28 degrees. Any immediate dangers?" asked Deho. "Hard to say. I'm reading dozens of life signs in the immediate area, but they're keeping their distance for now." The crew of the Endurance had set up a basic camp near their landing site. Force field generators created a protective barrier around their equipment, while motion sensors watched for any approaching threats. It should have made them feel safer. It didn't. "I don't like this," muttered Sergeant Kim, one of their security officers. He was scanning the tree line with his rifle, but there was nothing to see. "It's too quiet." "No, it's not," Deho said, listening carefully. "There are sounds everywhere. You just have to know how to hear them." He was right. The forest was full of life, but it was subtle. The soft sound of something large moving through the upper branches. The distant call of what might have been a bird or might have been something else entirely. The rustle of leaves that suggested creatures passing through the undergrowth. "They're watching us," said Hyejin, adjusting her scanner. "I can't get a clear reading, but there's definitely something big out there." "How big?" asked Boram nervously. "Big enough that I can't tell where one ends and another begins. Either we're looking at one massive creature, or several large ones moving together." Dr. Keln, who had been studying soil samples, looked up with excitement. "This is remarkable," he said. "The ecosystem here is incredibly organized. Every plant, every insect, every microorganism seems to have a specific role. It's like looking at a garden that's been perfectly designed." "Designed by who?" asked Taekyung. "That's the question, isn't it?" As the first day passed, the crew began to relax slightly. Whatever was watching them from the forest seemed content to observe rather than attack. They set up their equipment, took readings, and began the process of trying to understand this strange world. It was on the second night that things began to change. Deho was awakened by a soft chiming from the motion sensors. He checked the displays, but they showed nothing unusual. Still, something felt wrong. He walked to the edge of their camp and peered into the darkness. The force field hummed quietly around them, a barrier of energy that should stop anything from getting through. "Should, Deho?" Hyejin's voice came from behind him. "What is it?" "I'm not sure." Something woke me up. She joined him at the perimeter, her own scanner in hand. "Motion sensors are clear," she reported, "but the energy readings are strange. It's like something very large passed close by, but the sensors never detected movement." They stood in silence for several minutes, listening to the sounds of the alien forest. Then Hyejin grabbed his arm. "Look." She was pointing at the ground just outside their force field. There, pressed into the soft earth, was a footprint. It was huge, easily the size of a dinner plate, with 4 distinct toe marks ending in what looked like claw impressions. "That wasn't there when we set up camp," Deho said quietly. "No, it wasn't." They followed the line of footprints with their eyes. They came from the forest, approached the force field, circled around the entire camp, then disappeared back into the trees. It was studying us, Deho realized, walking around our camp, looking at our equipment, trying to understand what we are. How did it get past the motion sensors? I don't know. But whatever made those tracks is smart enough to avoid our detection systems. The next morning brought more disturbing discoveries. Several pieces of equipment that had been placed outside the force field were gone. Not destroyed, not scattered around as if attacked. Simply gone. The atmospheric processor is missing, reported Dr. Vell, along with 2 of our remote cameras and a soil analysis probe. Taken, said Deho. Not destroyed, taken. But why? Asked Dr. Keln. What would alien predators want with our equipment? To study it. To understand how it works. To learn about us. Sergeant Kim was checking his weapons nervously. If they're that interested in our gear, how long before they get interested in us? As if in answer to his question, alarms began sounding from the camp's perimeter. Contact, shouted Tae-kyung from the communication station. Multiple large life signs approaching from 3 directions. How many? Demanded Sergeant Kim. I count at least 6, maybe more. They're big and they're moving fast. The crew grabbed their weapons and took defensive positions around the camp. Through the force field, they could see movement in the forest. Dark shapes slipping between the trees, too quick and shadowy to make out clearly. Then suddenly the movement stopped. Where are they? Whispered Private Lee, one of the other security officers. Still there? Tae-kyung replied, checking his instruments. They've surrounded us, but they're not moving. Waiting for something, said Dae-ho. Waiting for what? Before anyone could answer, a sound echoed through the forest. It was like nothing any of them had ever heard. Deep, resonant, almost musical. It seemed to come from everywhere at once. Communication, breathed Dr. Vell. They're trying to communicate. The sound came again, slightly different this time, then a third variation and a fourth. Each one was complex, layered with meanings they couldn't understand. Can you translate it? Dae-ho asked Tae-kyung. I can try, but it's unlike any language I've encountered. It's not just sound. There are subsonic frequencies, electromagnetic pulses, even chemical markers in the air. They're communicating with their entire bodies. The calls continued for several minutes. Then, as suddenly as they had begun, they stopped. Are they gone? Asked Boram. No, Tae-kyung said, studying his readings. They're still there. Still waiting. For what? Demanded Sergeant Kim. Dae-ho stared out into the dark forest, thinking about everything he knew about predator behavior, about pack hunting, territorial displays, and the complex social rules that governed Earth's apex species. They're waiting for us to respond, he said finally. Respond how? I don't know yet. But they made contact. They showed themselves, they called out to us. Now they're waiting to see what we do next. He looked around at his crew, all of them tense and ready for battle. I think we have 2 choices. We can stay here behind our force field and wait for them to get bored and leave. Or we can try to answer their call. And if we choose wrong? Asked Hee-jin. Dae-ho looked out at the alien forest where creatures beyond imagination waited in the shadows. Then we probably don't get a second chance. But even as he said it, he was already making his decision. They hadn't come all this way to hide behind energy barriers. They had come to make contact with the apex predators of the galaxy. It was time to find out if his theories about predator behavior were correct. Dae-ho stood at the edge of the force field, his hand hovering over the control panel. One switch would drop the barrier that protected them from the alien predators waiting in the darkness. His crew watched him with expressions ranging from concern to outright fear. Sir, I strongly advise against this, said Sergeant Kim. We have no idea what those things are capable of. That's exactly why I have to do this, Dae-ho replied. We came here to understand them, not to hide from them. He looked around at each member of his team. Everyone stays here except me. If something goes wrong, seal the force field and prepare for immediate takeoff. Dae-ho, no, Hee-jin protested. If you're going out there, I'm going with you. This isn't a democracy, he said firmly. I'm the mission commander and I'm making this decision alone. Before anyone could argue further, he deactivated the force field and stepped outside. The forest seemed to hold its breath. Dae-ho could feel eyes watching him from the shadows, but nothing moved. He walked slowly toward the tree line, his hands empty and visible. Every instinct screamed at him to run back to safety, but he forced himself to keep moving forward. I know you're there, he said aloud, though he doubted they could understand his words. I know you're watching me. A branch rustled to his left. Something large shifted in the undergrowth ahead. but still nothing showed itself. Daeho stopped about 20 meters from the trees and sat down on the ground. It was a gesture of vulnerability, the opposite of what any predator would expect from prey. He waited. Minutes passed in silence. Then so quietly he almost missed it. Footsteps approached from behind. He didn't turn around. Every muscle in his body wanted to spin and face the threat, but he stayed perfectly still. The footsteps came closer, then stopped just a few meters away. Slowly, carefully, Daeho looked over his shoulder. The creature standing behind him was magnificent and terrifying in equal measure. It stood nearly 4 meters tall, its body covered in what looked like natural armor plating. Its limbs were long and powerful, ending in hands that could easily crush a human skull, but it was the eyes that captured Daeho's attention. They were large, intelligent, and completely focused on him. This was a Vorthak. For a long moment neither of them moved. Daeho could hear his heart pounding, but he kept his breathing steady. The Vorthak tilted its head slightly as if puzzled by his behavior. Then it spoke. The sound was deep and complex, layered with meanings Daeho couldn't understand. But there was something in the tone that he recognized, not aggression, curiosity. "I don't understand your words," Daeho said softly, "but I think I understand your intent." He slowly reached into his pocket and pulled out a small device. It was a universal translator, though he doubted it would work with such an alien language. Still, it was worth trying. The Vorthak watched intently as he activated the device. For a few seconds, nothing happened. Then the translator began producing sounds, attempting to match the patterns of the alien speech. The result was crude and probably wrong, but the Vorthak seemed to understand the attempt. It made another sound, softer this time. "Curious," the translator said in its mechanical voice. "You... different." "Yes," Daeho said, speaking slowly so the device could process his words. "I am different. I am human. Human," the Vorthak repeated, the word strange in its deep voice. "Small, weak, but not afraid." "I am afraid," Daeho admitted. "But I came here anyway." The creature studied him for another long moment. Then it moved, but not to attack. Instead, it circled around him, examining him from different angles. Daeho forced himself to remain still, even when the massive predator passed close enough that he could smell its alien scent. "Why come?" the Vorthak asked finally. "To understand you, to learn who you are. We are Vorthak. We are hunters. We are death." "You are more than that," Daeho said. "You could have killed me already. You chose not to. That makes you more than just killers." The Vorthak paused in its circling. "Others fear us, run from us, you sit, you wait, why?" Daeho thought about his answer carefully. "Because I recognize what you are. On my world we have predators too. They are dangerous, but they are not evil. They follow rules. They have honor. I think you are the same." "Honor," the Vorthak said, and something in its voice suggested the word had deep meaning. "You know of honor. I know that true predators protect their territory and their pack. I know they don't kill without reason. I know they respect strength and courage." The Vorthak stopped circling and faced him directly. "I am Terran," it said. "Pack leader. Territory guardian. You are in my domain." "I am Daeho," he replied, matching the formal tone. "I come seeking understanding, not conquest. Many come seeking. All come with weapons, with fear. With lies. I have no weapons, only questions." Theron studied him for a long time. Then it made a gesture with one of its massive hands. "Come." Without waiting for an answer, Theron turned and walked into the forest. Daeho hesitated for only a moment before following. Behind him, he could hear his crew calling out in alarm, but he didn't look back. This was his chance to understand the galaxy's apex predators. He wouldn't waste it. The forest was even more alien up close. The trees were alive in ways that Earth plants never were, their bark shifting color as he passed, their leaves rustling without any wind. The ground beneath his feet was soft and springy, covered with what looked like moss but felt like walking on living tissue. Theron moved through this environment with perfect grace, never making a sound despite his size. Daeho followed as quietly as he could, though he knew he must sound like a crashing elephant to the sensitive ears of his guide. They walked for perhaps an hour before reaching their destination. It was a clearing larger than the one where the Endurance had landed, surrounded by trees that seemed to lean inward, creating a natural amphitheater, and it was full of Vorthak. Deho stopped breathing for a moment. There were at least 20 of them, all roughly the same size as Theron, but with subtle differences in coloring and build. They were arranged in a rough circle, and all of them were staring at him. "My pack," Theron said simply. One of the other Vorthak stepped forward. This one was slightly smaller than Theron, but moved with the same predatory grace. When it spoke, Deho's translator identified the voice as female. "This is the strange small one?" she asked. "This is Deho," Theron replied. "He claims understanding of hunter ways." The female Vorthak approached closer, studying Deho with intense interest. "I am Nyx," she said, "second hunter of this pack. You say you understand us, small one. But do you understand what it means to be pack?" "I think so," Deho said carefully. "Pack means loyalty. It means protecting each other. It means working together for the survival of all." "Yes," Nyx said, sounding pleased, "but it also means hierarchy. It means knowing your place. It means earning your position through strength and wisdom." She circled him much as Theron had done, but her examination felt more intense, more testing. "What is your position in your pack, small one?" "I am the leader of my research team," Deho said. "But I am not the strongest or the fastest. I lead because I understand things others don't." "Understanding is a form of strength," said another voice. A third Vorthak had joined the conversation. "But it must be proven, not claimed." Theron made a sound that might have been agreement. "The small one asks for understanding," he said to the pack. "But he offers nothing in return. This is not Packway." Deho felt his heart sink. He had no idea what he could offer these magnificent predators that they would value. "What would you have me give?" he asked. "Truth," Nyx said immediately. "Your people fear us. They call us monsters. They send fleets to destroy us. Why should we trust one who comes from such a pack?" Deho thought about lying, about trying to make humanity sound better than it was. But these were apex predators evolved to detect deception. "Because my people are predators too," he said finally. "We've forgotten it mostly. We pretend to be civilized, peaceful, but we're not. We're hunters and warriors and survivors. That's why I can understand you when others can't. That's why I'm not running in terror right now." The pack was silent for a long moment. Then Theron stepped forward. "Show us," he said. "Show you what?" "Show us you are a hunter. Prove you are worthy of pack knowledge." Deho looked around at the circle of alien predators, each one capable of tearing him apart with their bare hands. "How do I do that?" Theron's expression was unreadable. "Survive the night." The words hung in the air like a death sentence. Survive the night. Deho looked around at the circle of Vorthak, trying to understand what that meant. Were they going to hunt him, test him, or simply leave him alone in an alien forest full of unknown dangers? "What are the rules?" he asked, proud that his voice remained steady. "No rules," Theron replied. "Only survival. You have until the sun rises to prove you are worthy of pack trust, and if I fail, then you were not worthy." Nyx stepped closer, her massive form blocking out what little light filtered through the canopy. "We will not hunt you directly," she said. "That would be unfair. But we will not help you either. The forest has its own dangers, small one. Survive them and you will have proven your hunter nature." "What about my crew?" "My ship? They are safe," Theron assured him. "This test is yours alone." Without another word, the Vorthak melted back into the forest, moving so silently that within moments Deho couldn't tell if they were still there or not. He was alone in the clearing as the alien sun began to set. The temperature dropped quickly once darkness fell. What had been warm and humid became cool and damp. Strange sounds echoed through the trees, calls, growls, and sounds he couldn't identify at all. Somewhere in the distance, something large crashed through the undergrowth. Deho had spent years studying predators, but this was different from anything on Earth. Here he was at the bottom of the food chain, a small mammal in a world of apex predators. He needed shelter, warmth, and water, but first he needed to understand his environment. Moving carefully, he explored the edge of the clearing. The trees here were different from anything in Earth forests. Their bark was smooth and slightly warm to the touch, and they seemed to pulse with their own rhythm. When he pressed his ear against one, he could swear he heard something like a heartbeat. Living trees. The entire forest was alive in a way Earth plants never were. He found what he was looking for near the base of the largest tree, a hollow space, between the massive roots that would provide some protection from the elements. It wasn't much, but it would have to do. Next came fire. He had matches in his emergency kit, but finding dry wood in this humid environment was going to be a challenge. After searching for nearly an hour, he managed to collect some dead branches and what looked like dried moss. It took 3 tries to get a small flame started. The fire changed everything. Not only did it provide warmth and light, but it also seemed to keep the night sounds at a respectful distance. Whatever was out there in the darkness, it wasn't eager to come near the flames. Deho settled down next to his small fire and tried to plan for the long night ahead. He had water in his emergency kit, but food was going to be a problem if this test lasted longer than expected. He also had no idea what else might be sharing this forest with him. As if summoned by his thoughts, a sound came from the darkness beyond the firelight. It was a low growl, definitely from something large. Deho froze, listening intently. The growl came again, closer this time. Then he saw eyes reflecting the firelight. Yellow eyes, much lower to the ground than a Vorthak would be. Something was stalking him. Slowly, carefully, he reached for a burning branch from his fire. The movement caused the eyes to vanish, but he could still hear breathing in the darkness. "I see you," he said quietly, though he doubted the creature understood him. "I know you're there." The breathing stopped. For a moment there was complete silence. Then something rushed at him from the side. Deho rolled away from the fire, swinging the burning branch as he moved. The flame caught something dark and furry, and whatever it was yelped and retreated, but it didn't go far. He got his first good look at his attacker when it moved between him and the fire. It was about the size of a large wolf, but built differently. Its legs were longer, its body more flexible, and its teeth were definitely designed for tearing rather than grinding. A predator, but not an apex predator. Something that hunted in packs, taking down prey through teamwork rather than individual strength. As if to confirm his assessment, more eyes appeared in the darkness. He counted at least 6 pairs, probably more. The pack was surrounding him. "Okay," he said to himself. "Think, what would a human predator do in this situation?" The answer came to him immediately. Humans didn't fight fair. They used tools, strategy, and intelligence to overcome physical disadvantages. He grabbed several more burning branches from his fire, creating a rough circle of flame around himself. The wolf creatures didn't like fire. That much was obvious. But they also weren't giving up. They paced just outside the ring of light, waiting for their chance. Deho needed a better plan than just standing there until his fire burned out. He studied the creatures carefully, watching their movements, looking for patterns. They moved like earth wolves, with clear pack hierarchy and coordinated behavior. The largest one stayed back, directing the others with subtle gestures and sounds. The others tested his defenses, looking for weaknesses, just like earth predators. The same basic patterns even on an alien world. That gave him an idea. Instead of waiting for them to attack, Deho went on the offensive. He grabbed the largest burning branch he could manage and charged directly at the pack leader. The move was so unexpected that the creature actually stepped back. Deho pressed his advantage, swinging the flame in wide arcs and shouting at the top of his lungs. He was making himself appear larger and more dangerous than he really was. The pack leader retreated further, its followers confused by this strange behavior. Prey wasn't supposed to attack predators. It was supposed to run or cower or die quietly. Deho kept up his aggressive display using every intimidation technique he had ever learned. He made himself look bigger, moved unpredictably, and never broke eye contact with the pack leader. It worked. After several tense minutes, the lead creature made a sound that was clearly a retreat signal. The pack melted back into the darkness, leaving Deho alone with his dying fire. His hands were shaking as he rebuilt the flame. The confrontation had used up most of his fuel, and he wasn't sure he had enough to last the rest of the night. But he had survived his first test. The next challenge came just before dawn. Deho was dozing fitfully by the remains of his fire when a sound woke him. Not the growling of another predator, but something else. A rhythmic thumping like heavy footsteps. Something very large was approaching. This time he didn't bother looking for eyes in the darkness. Whatever was coming was making no effort to hide itself. The footsteps grew louder, accompanied by the sound of small trees being pushed aside. When it finally stepped into the clearing, Deho could only stare. The creature was enormous, easily twice the size of an elephant. It walked on 6 legs, each one thick as a tree trunk, and its hide looked tough enough to stop bullets. But it wasn't the size that surprised him. It was the fact that it wasn't attacking. Instead, it was simply standing there, watching him with eyes that seemed almost curious. Daeho slowly got to his feet. His fire had burned down to nothing but embers, but he no longer felt afraid. There was something in the creature's posture that suggested it wasn't a threat. "Hello?" he said softly. The giant creature tilted its massive head, considering him. Then it made a sound. Not aggressive, but almost questioning. Daeho took a step closer. The creature didn't back away. Another step. Still no retreat. He reached out slowly, his hand trembling slightly, and touched the creature's tough hide. It was warm and surprisingly smooth. The creature made another sound, this one almost like a purr. "You're not a predator at all, are you?" Daeho whispered. "You're a herbivore," a gentle giant. As if in response, the creature lowered its head until it was nearly at Daeho's level. Its eyes were large and intelligent, and there was something in them that seemed almost friendly. They stood together in the pre-dawn darkness. A small human and a massive alien herbivore, sharing a moment of peaceful contact across the species barrier. Then the sun began to rise. The creature made one final sound, almost like a farewell, and turned to lumber back into the forest. Daeho watched it go, feeling strangely honored by the encounter. "Daeho!" He turned to see Theron emerging from the tree line, followed by Nyx and several other members of the pack. They had been watching, he realized, observing his test from the darkness. "You survived," Theron said, and there was something like approval in his voice. "I did more than survive," Daeho replied. "I learned." "What did you learn, small one?" Nyx asked. "That being a predator isn't about being the biggest or the strongest. It's about understanding your environment, using your intelligence, and knowing when to fight and when to make friends." The Vorthak exchanged glances. Then Theron stepped forward. "You have proven yourself worthy," he said formally. "You may ask your questions and we will answer them. You may seek understanding and we will provide it. But first," Nyx added with what might have been amusement, "you should probably return to your pack. They are very worried about their missing leader." As they walked back toward the landing site together, Daeho realized that everything had changed. He was no longer just a human studying alien predators. He was something new, a bridge between two apex species who were finally beginning to understand each other. The real work was just beginning.